The aliens thought Earth was soft. That we were fractured, distracted, primitive. They ignored the warning, just 5 words. They thought we were bluffing. But they didn't understand, humans don't bluff. We bait. We bleed. And when cornered, we burn the galaxy down. They called it a bluff. 5 words blinking across a cracked transmission relay. This is your only warning. No signature. No threat. No demand. Just silence afterward, as if the humans couldn't even bother to explain themselves. Exarch Vern scoffed and crushed the message crystal in his armored palm. Send down the first wave, he said, voice smooth with the arrogance of centuries of conquest. We'll paint their skies with fire. He wasn't alone in his confidence. Every member of the Kothari High Fleet aboard Emperor's Grasp had studied Earth's intelligence file, fractured world governments, a laughably outdated military, and an ecosystem on the brink of collapse. No unified resistance. No interstellar fleet. Just a primitive species clawing at its own throat. They had no idea. The assault ships dropped like metal rain. Clouds split as atmospheric entry ignited their hulls, Kothari shock troops roaring through the troposphere with conquest in their veins. They expected opposition. Maybe old fighter jets, surface-to-air relics, tanks rusted to their wheels. What they found instead was nothing. London was empty. New York, ghosted. Beijing, Mumbai, Lagos, all silent. No civilian panic. No visible defense. Just cities too quiet to be alive. Vern frowned at the reports. Is this surrender? He muttered. Or bait? The fleet AI responded, clinical and cold. Human civilian presence, evacuated. Military installations, unpowered or abandoned. Orbital scans detect anomalous patterns below major population centers. He glanced at the war map, its digital terrain glowing in crimson threads. Define anomalous. Unknown substructures beneath urban foundations. High density. Shielded. Static until now. As the words finished speaking, Earth's satellites blinked out, simultaneously. 73,000 orbital eyes, dead in a heartbeat. The Kothari command deck fell into stunned silence. It wasn't jamming. It wasn't interference. It was erasure. Re-establish contact. Vern snapped. Find their source arrays. Burn them out. There are no detectable transmissions. Their comms infrastructure has vanished. How does an entire planet go dark? No one answered. On the far side of the moon, unseen by any alien scanner, Fortress Luna stirred. It had slept in Earth's shadow for 40 years, its black walls layered in radar-bending composites, its batteries silent but not idle. Inside its control center, Commandant Sora Alvarez stood unmoving as lights went red across the command board. The technician to her left swallowed hard. We have full silence across the network. Blackout confirmed. Sora spoke without turning. Status of Ghost Protocol? Armed. Luna batteries locked. She nodded once. Then we begin. Phase 2. Cut the leash. They didn't fire missiles. They fired Earth itself. Thousands of kinetic rods, long as buses and heavy as death, dropped from high orbit at velocities physics could barely accommodate. They didn't explode. They punched. Through hulls, decks, armor, entire Kothari carriers folded in on themselves before their captains could scream. The first strike turned the vigilant spark into a falling star. The second cut the command ship Iron Halberd clean in half. The third didn't even leave a name to remember. Vern gripped the rail as his fleet convulsed in silence. The sky was a graveyard of motion, hulls collapsing, plasma igniting, crew evaporating in vacuum. This wasn't a battle. This wasn't even a trap. This was judgment. Where are their weapons? Vern shouted. Where are the launch signatures? There are none, BI said flatly. Impact-only projectiles. No radiation. No energy trail. They are dropping metal. From where? Luna. Vern blinked. The moon? Yes, Exarch. How many do they have? The AI paused. Unknown. Conservative estimate, thousands. Sora Alvarez watched it all from Luna's heart. Her face was still. Her voice colder than vacuum. This is for Nairobi. For Ganymede Station. For the probe you melted over Saturn because it didn't kneel. The technician nodded grimly. We have incoming fleet chatter. Scrambled chaotic. Let them scream. On Earth, deep beneath Greenland, another base opened its eyes. Project Tartarus, the myth reborn in metal. Its chamber held one object, a silver spike barely larger than a javelin, stored in cryostasis, suspended by magnetic containment fields. A weapon so fast it could shear time on arrival. Its target, the Kothari star. The humans didn't want to win. They wanted to erase the idea of ever challenging them again. As the command signature pulsed, the spike vanished, launched at fractional light speed, invisible even to the Kothari's deepest sensors. It would take a month to arrive. They would never see it coming. On Emperor's Grasp, Vern's control room was in chaos. Signals jammed. Ships failing. Hulls crumbling. He bared his teeth, guttural. We're leaving. Right now. Jump drives offline. Someone barked. Gravitational disruption field locked in place. We're boxed. A new signal cut across all decks. It wasn't Kothari. It was human. A voice, clear, unhurried, surgical. This is Terra. You were warned. Vern staggered back as the control board sparked. Shut it off, shut it OFF. But it didn't shut off. It grew louder. You took our silence as weakness. You mistook noise for strength. You came to dominate. And now you'll learn why Earth doesn't negotiate. We survive. We adapt. And when pushed, we end threats. You were warned. You didn't listen. The message stopped. And then came the second wave. From Earth's crust, drop pods howled into orbit, silent missiles carrying void-born units, human spec ops bred in no nation, loyal to no flag, engineered for war in a vacuum. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast. They cut. Unit Cerberus boarded the Wraith Pyre through a hull breach. Sergeant Cade Rouse led the charge, stepping through smoke into chaos. Kothari troops fired blindly. Roz didn't blink. He raised a scattergun and walked forward. Wrong planet, he muttered. Plasma hissed past. He didn't flinch. Wrong species. He vaulted a bulkhead, shotgun booming. Wrong goddamn century. His squad followed with grim efficiency. One by one, Kothari fell, some suffocated when humans ruptured airlocks, others were vaporized by grenades magnetized to alien armor. There were no survivors. There weren't supposed to be. When Vern's comms went dead, he didn't need a report. He knew. He had miscalculated. Not Earth's power. Not their tech. Not even their tactics. He had misjudged their nature. They weren't warriors. They were something worse. They were cornered humans. And he had cornered the entire species. The smoke rising from Earth's shattered skyline was a lie, one Vern desperately wanted to believe. He stared at the feed from the surface, abandoned cities, no movement, no resistance, and clung to the illusion of an easy conquest. In his mind, humanity was broken. Too divided to unify, too savage to organize. The warnings had been posturing. The silence now, strategy. He told himself this even as entire wings of his fleet disappeared without a trace. Sensors showed no energy signatures. The dead ships didn't explode. They vanished in silence, folded into atmosphere or crushed mid-orbit by forces no Kothari ship could detect. The quiet was more unnerving than any bombardment. Then came the second message, no longer text but voice, impossibly clear across every band of communication. You were warned. Now you burn. He ordered evasive maneuvers, shields at full strength, evasive formation KL-27. Too late. Kinetic strikes, invisible and brutal, slammed through armor and reactor cores. One ship tried to flee. Its drive failed mid-burst and tore itself inside out. Another spiraled toward Earth, a flaming meteor of twisted metal and frozen bodies. Where is the source? Where are the launch platforms? Vern demanded, clawing at his console. There is no energy output to trace, replied the AI, its synthetic tone edged with something close to fear. No known platform. They are dropping mass at terminal velocity. The Admiral turned, voice shaking now. Then find their defenses. Find the... He never finished. A secondary console exploded, and 2 deck officers were vaporized instantly. No warning. No breach alert. A stealth projectile had pierced their hull and exited the other side before the ship's systems noticed it had been attacked. Sora Alvarez watched from Fortress Luna, unmoved. On her screen, fleet positions blinked out, one by one. Her aide looked pale. 75 ships confirmed destroyed. Remaining fleet in full retreat vector. Kothari flagship attempting jump. Not yet, she said. They haven't seen the worst of us. From beneath Antarctica, silos opened that hadn't moved in decades. They didn't launch missiles, they launched men. Human assault pods ignited, silent bullets streaking toward low orbit. No radio chatter. No lights. Just heatless, precision-guided bodies packed with human fury. Cerberus squad was first to breach. Their drop capsules slammed through the side of the Kothari gunship Wraith Pyre, skidding along the interior like a scalpel. Sergeant Ross stood first, one arm already soaked in another being's blood. Squad up. Helmets locked. Clean sweep. No confirmation needed. The unit moved through the burning hallway like they trained for this since birth. They had. Every member of the Void-born squads had been grown in subterranean habitats, trained in vacuum, fluent in zero-G slaughter. They were Earth's answer to extraterrestrial arrogance, one surgical incision at a time. The first wave of defenders came in shrieking, snapping off plasma rounds. Raz ducked under fire, surged forward, drove a combat knife under the chin of the first Kothari and fired twice into the next. No commands. No hesitation. The hallway turned red and then went still. Secondary objective? One asked, checking his remaining rounds. Bridge or bust, Raz replied, reloading without looking. If it moves and it isn't gasping for air, kill it. Back on the flagship, Vern's orders degraded into panic. Send reinforcements. Secure our borders, defend the... A new voice cut across the frequency. Not Sora's. Not a soldier's. This one was unknown, mechanical but unmistakably human. You see ghosts because we made you blind. Vern looked around at his bridge crew. The words hadn't come from internal comms. They came from inside their implants. Direct neuro broadcast. Impossible. Illegal. Unbelievable. The voice continued. We've fought longer wars on worse odds. You are not the first empire to call us savages. You will be the last. Fleet systems went haywire. Navigational data inverted. Gravimetric readings spiked. Ship orientation glitched. Multiple vessels began drifting uncontrollably toward each other. Collision alarms shrieked. What's happening? We've lost anchor locks. Mass distortion. There's a field forming around the entire system. Artificial. In the silence that followed, Sora's voice broke through once more, calm as stone. Jump if you want. You won't make it far. The Kothari fleet attempted anyway. Ships spun up their hyperdrives, light bending around their forms. Then collapse. 80% of jump initiations failed catastrophically. Ships imploded mid-cycle, ripped into atomic ribbons by the interference field humans had laced into soul space. A net made of gravity, magnetism, and raw spite. Raz reached the bridge of Wraith Pyre 2 minutes later. The command crew had barricaded the door. It didn't matter. The squad breached the bulkhead with a single explosive and stormed through. He shot the captain in the first second, gunned down the navigator in the next. A Kothari officer crawled back, wide-eyed, weaponless. Why? You could have signaled surrender. You could have offered terms. Raz reloaded slowly, calmly. And you could have left. You're monsters. He paused, considering. Then, we're survivors. There's a difference. And survivors learn to make examples. The barrel flared white. The message was sent. By the end of the hour, what was left of the Kothari fleet was scattered, disoriented, broken. No chain of command. No safe trajectory. No home within reach. Earth's silence returned, not from lack of will, but satisfaction. They had spoken clearly. This was never about negotiation. It was the lesson. The last one anyone would need. The remains of the Kothari fleet drifted in slow, burning silence. No formation. No communication. Just fractured hulls, torn lifeboats, and fading plasma trails. The command corps was dead. The admiral was ash. Protocols meant to protect them from chaos had crumbled alongside the hierarchy. What remained was instinct, panic, retreat, and the cold realization that they hadn't invaded a planet. They had disturbed something ancient, something patient, something designed to wait. Sergeant Kate Raz stood on the bridge of the Wraith Pyre, blood soaking the grooves of his armor. Around him, bodies, alien and human, were still. His voice cut across the squad channel with razor calm. Mission complete. Transmit data burst. Confirm host termination. One of his men, Torres, scanned the console with scorched gloves. All command personnel eliminated. Transmission beacon active. Cade exhaled. Good. We move. They didn't stay to gloat. The Voidborn didn't believe in victory speeches. They weren't bred for morale. Their job wasn't to win wars. It was to send warnings. And the bloodied halls of this flagship, once a symbol of Kothari dominion, were now a message painted in viscera. As they exited, a distorted voice pierced every open frequency across what was left of the Kothari fleet. It wasn't military, nor a threat. It was a statement, spoken in a tone that left no room for interpretation. We told you to leave. You didn't. Now you learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. The voice paused. Breathing could be heard. Then it continued. You sent ships. We sent silence. You sent armies. We sent gravity. You sent conquest. We sent a lesson. Consider this your education. The message ended. But for those listening, it never truly stopped. Aboard the fractured remains of the destroyer Vexor's teeth, First Officer Yell was bleeding from 2 wounds and gripping the floor with 3 trembling claws. He tried to rally his crew, but there was no one left to hear him. Just static. And the occasional thud, heavy, irregular, closer each time. Then came the final door breach. Not explosive, just sudden. A man walked in, black armor splattered, helmet cracked, shotgun in hand. No squad. Just him. His presence didn't need support. Yell tried to speak, but the human raised one finger. Don't, he said. I'm here for the black box. Not you. Yell swallowed. We didn't know. You're not what we expected. No one ever expects consequence, the human replied. But you had your chance. We gave you one message. That's more than most get. I thought humans were fractured. That you were weak. You thought wrong. The man walked over to the console, pulled the data core from its housing, and turned. He paused, looked Yell in the eyes. Next time someone tells you Earth is unprepared, ask them how many warnings we give. He walked out without firing a shot. Back on Luna, Commandant Sora Alvarez reviewed the fleet analytics. 71% confirmed destroyed. 21% crippled. Remaining 8% scattered and non-operational. A faint buzz signaled a new report. She opened it, live footage from Tartarus, deep-range weapons systems online. The spike was already in motion, heading toward the Kothari home star. A relativistic weapon, not meant to destroy a planet. No, Earth didn't care about territory. It aimed for symbols. Culture. Legacy. The strike wouldn't just kill, it would erase. The sun would shudder. Civilization would collapse. And no one could stop it. Not anymore. Her aide asked quietly. Should we recall the spike? Show restraint? She looked at the screen again. The bodies. The ruins. The arrogance. No, she said. We tried restraint. It's time the galaxy understood consequence. Meanwhile, scattered across the system, human units swept the field, not to recover, but to document. Bodies were tagged, ships recorded. Every inch of damage was fed into a data stream that would become the official archive, the day Earth answered. Sergeant Roz returned to Luna last. His armor bore scars from 12 separate breaches. He limped, refused assistance, and handed the command center a single drive. Final logs from the Wraith Pyre. Everything they saw. Everything they feared. It's all in there. Sora didn't smile. She just nodded. Well done, Sergeant. He looked out the viewport at the debris orbiting Earth like a jagged halo. They thought we were divided. They were wrong. They thought we'd fold. We evolved. He clenched his fist. We didn't just survive. We remembered. Sora tilted her head. And now they will too. In the far reaches of the sector, what remained of the Kothari fleet huddled in silence. No orders. No hope. Just silence. One commander, stripped of rank and reason, whispered, "Why didn't we listen?" The answer came from no one. Because the dead don't speak. And the living now feared the one name they swore never to acknowledge with respect. Earth. No banners. No anthem. No declaration. Just one warning. And then war without mercy. The war was no longer a war. It had become a demonstration. In the void above Earth, what remained of the Kothari fleet tried to regroup. Their ships had lost synchronization. Command systems were in collapse. Officers barked orders that no one followed, not out of defiance, but because every command now ended in silence, fire, or death. What had started as an invasion had become a survival exercise, and they were failing it one ship at a time. Captain Lurock of the dreadnought Iron Womb watched the stars spin erratically across his shattered bridge. Communications were fried. Life support flickered. But it was the silence that unnerved him most. He had served in 3 planetary sieges, led orbital bombardments of rebel colonies, but never had he witnessed destruction delivered without ceremony. No ultimatum. No demand. Just methodical obliteration. It felt less like combat, more like a purge. He reached for the backup comm relay, bypassed the cracked panel, and tried to initiate a jump. The drive stuttered. Internal systems blinked red. Drive suppression field confirmed. His engineer muttered. They've woven a gravity net around the system. We're anchored. How did they build this? Lurock whispered. They didn't build it recently. That's the problem. They've had it waiting. Across the shattered orbital field, the lunar rail cannon came online. Its barrel locked onto the largest remaining ship in the Kothari formation, a carrier-class warship still broadcasting orders as if discipline could hold reality together. The round launched at 18 times the speed of sound, a dense, silent bolt of tungsten. There was no flare, no flash, no cinematic warning. It hit amidships and turned the vessel into fragmented steel and drifting limbs in less than a second. The others didn't try to avenge it. They just scattered. The voice returned. It didn't yell. It didn't gloat. It simply spoke, clear and unforgiving. This wasn't an ambush. It was a response. You broke our sky open. We decided to show you what we buried beneath it. Inside the ruins of a Kothari scout frigate, the last surviving pilot tried to eject. His escape pod refused to launch. A small human boarding unit had landed minutes earlier. 2 soldiers breached the core chamber and stepped over the wreckage toward the trembling pilot. The lead soldier pulled off her helmet. Her face was blood-smeared but calm. She looked the alien in the eyes and said nothing. Why? The pilot asked. Why this level of force? She crouched beside him, resting one gloved hand on her rifle. You brought your gods into our house, she said. And we buried ours a long time ago. They're quieter now, but meaner. He didn't understand. That didn't matter. She stood, gave him one last look, and walked away. On Earth, Sora Alvarez received confirmation from Tartarus. The spike had cleared the Oort cloud, still accelerating. Estimated time to impact, 34 days. Its destination, the Kothari Sun. The device wasn't just kinetic, it was self-adjusting, phase-shifting. It would arrive where no one could intercept it, and when it did, it would render the Kothari homeworld uninhabitable. Her aide read the numbers aloud. Projected kill radius, system-wide. Estimated death toll. I don't need the count, she interrupted. I need the silence afterward. Meanwhile, in the command hall of the Fracture's Will, a Kothari noble born into command tried to make sense of the sudden vacuum. Every ally he had once relied on, every protocol he'd memorized, had failed. He reviewed what little data remained. There were no images of human superweapons. No footage of mass deployments. Just scattered clips, buildings collapsing in controlled burns, orbital relays severed with surgical strikes, soldiers moving like ghosts through smoke. They hadn't conquered. They'd dismantled. The noble closed the file and whispered to himself. We invaded a myth. In the far upper atmosphere, a human engineer adjusted the targeting matrix for Luna's auxiliary railgun array. He watched the wreckage drift. Around him, other crews didn't cheer. They moved with focus, their faces calm. Victory wasn't a celebration. It was a routine. Sergeant Cade Raz, patched up and back on his feet, stood aboard a salvage vessel hovering near the remains of Emperor's Grasp. The flagship was barely recognizable. Still, the AI core had survived. A final recording had been recovered. In it, Exarch Vern issued his last command. Erase their memory. Burn them from history. Raz shook his head and spat. You did worse than fail. You made us remember who we are. The feed cut. He turned to the calm officer. Broadcast the core log across all frequencies. Let the galaxy hear his last wish. And then show them what actually happened. The message repeated in loops. No editing. No flourish. Just raw footage and the slow crawl of the consequences that followed. Far beyond Sol, alien civilizations began re-evaluating their threat assessments. Treaties were rewritten overnight. Cartographers labeled Earth not with a color code, but with a single word. Unapproachable. In the core chamber of Fortress Luna, Sora entered the war log and marked the operation as complete. She didn't call it a victory. She labeled it correction. Earth had been underestimated. That wasn't unusual. What followed, however, would be taught for generations, in whispers, behind locked doors. Her final note read, They knocked. We answered. They bled. And across the stars, the echo of Earth's only message remained. We warned you. The council chamber was silent. Not out of respect, not even from fear. What hung in the air was something worse, recognition. The Kothari were not the first to fall, only the loudest. And now their ashes whispered louder than their boasts ever had. The footage had spread like fire through a dry galaxy, a fleet reduced to splinters, command ships pierced like fruit, and human soldiers walking through metal halls like reapers with quiet contempt. No fanfare, no declarations, no banners raised. Just execution carried out with restraint so cold it bordered on cruelty. Ambassador Trell of the Zelothi Confederation turned to the others. We labeled them fractured. Primitive. Do you understand now? That wasn't division. That was camouflage. His voice trembled, not with emotion, but with the gravity of having survived his own assumptions. No one responded. Most just stared at the footage on loop, images from the black box of the Emperor's Grasp, captured moments before the rail cannon tore through it. Humans had called it their final warning. The galaxy now understood it had been their first. The Council scribes had already adjusted Earth's entry. No longer ranked as a developing power. No longer subject to classification tiers. Just one line, across every diplomatic channel, every military registry. Sol system, isolation enforced. No engagement authorized. On Earth, there was no celebration. No parades. No announcements. The humans didn't seem to care how the galaxy responded. They had done what they needed to do, and now they were quiet again. Some tried reaching out. Messages offering truce, treaties, apologies. Every signal returned void. No reply. Earth didn't answer with threats, they answered once. If that wasn't enough, they didn't speak again. In orbit, the cleanup had begun. Not to recover ships or tech. Those had already been recorded, catalogued, and left to drift. The mission was simple: erase the trail. The humans weren't hiding their victory. They just didn't think it needed to be seen. They wanted the lesson to live in memory, not footage. Commandant Sora Alvarez stood at the edge of Fortress Luna, overseeing the final shutdown of active defense systems. Her expression was unchanged, just as it had been when the first Kothari ship fell. She spoke only once during the deactivation sequence. "They'll talk about this for centuries. We don't need to." Sergeant Raz was debriefed without ceremony. His report was factual, stripped of drama. He didn't mention the screams, the chaos, the fear he'd seen in the alien eyes. He didn't need to. It was already written into the silence they'd left behind. When asked if he regretted anything, he shrugged. "We gave them a chance. They laughed. Next time someone laughs, they'll check the stars behind them first." The officer nodded, logged the statement, and cleared him from duty. No medals were awarded. No ribbons handed out. The humans didn't reward necessary action. They prepared for the next time. But there was something different now, something unspoken. The human people, those not involved in strategy or blood, felt it too. A shift. Not pride. Not relief. Clarity. They knew now what they were capable of when cornered. And so did everyone else. On a forgotten moon orbiting a minor gas giant, an old Kothari commander lay in exile. He had survived by disobeying a direct order to engage. Dishonor by Kothari code. But not death. He watched the stars every night, wondering if Earth was watching them back. He spoke once, to a traveling historian. "They were quiet," he said. "And now I hear that quiet everywhere." The historian recorded the words, added them to a growing archive of phrases uttered by survivors. There weren't many. Earth hadn't left much alive. In the centuries that followed, new empires would rise. Bold voices would whisper again of expansion, of untapped systems. Maps would be redrawn. Charts revisited. But one part of the galaxy remained untouched. Sol. Some said it was haunted. Others said cursed. The veterans, though, said nothing. They just avoided the subject entirely, as if naming the system was enough to invoke its wrath again. The spike that had been launched from Tartarus struck the Kothari star 34 days after the last shot was fired. It did not explode. It did not create a spectacle. It simply shifted the balance, collapsed the equilibrium of the core, and began a quiet chain reaction that would burn the Kothari homeworld from the inside over the next 2 decades. It was not revenge. It was insurance. By the time the light from that destruction reached the edge of Sol space, Earth's defenses were even stronger. Luna now carried 3 rail cannons. Mars had become a silent fortress. And deep in the black between orbits, silent probes floated like mines, undetectable, unspeaking, deadly. The humans didn't garrison fleets. They built scars into the sky. The last official message Earth ever sent to the galaxy was short, unsentimental. "To all sentients who watch the stars, we are not your enemy, unless you need us to be. We will not ask twice." That message was never repeated. Because it never had to be.